My playing days here in Africa, don't let this suit fool you. I've played on some of the roughest grounds this continent has to offer, and my playing days and my right knee finished their last kick on a ground in Zimbabwe that had holes in it the size of bomb craters. So essentially, it's in my heart. I've got a lot of strong views about this, and I've got a great panel today, and we're going to be discussing sport that's now worth a business between $600 and $700 billion a year. That's exactly the size of sport we're talking about. And if I could just introduce my panel and ask them to join me on the stage, starting out with the South Africa's Minister of Sport, Tokisile Xaza. If you please join me on stage. Very much. Next, if we could also ask on stage with Joyce Similani. He's an executive director of the Premier Soccer League here in South Africa, and also a leading light with Mamelodi Sundowns, my Brazilians, one of the greatest teams ever to have strapped on football boots in this continent. And last but certainly not least, can I welcome on the stage Masai Ujiri. The president of the Toronto Raptors, who are currently #1 in the NBA, and also, as you pointed out, the only African running a sports outfit in the whole of North America. He wants that to change. And that's one of the discussions we're going to be having today. But just to say a little bit more about what the Toronto Raptors do, just have a look at some film we've got here. It'll give you a better idea.
When I think about what Alma has now accomplished in building this center, what I think about is that first night in the yard, and I looked up at the stars, and I visited my father's grave, and it connected you to your past, and it connected you to the stories of those who came before you, that then fortified you for the future.
Such an honor to have two great leaders here.
Let me just say to the young folks here from Rwanda, it's an honor to be here in Kigali. It's my first time in Rwanda. It's a beautiful country you have here. And let me just say, take advantage of this opportunity.
I need everybody in here. This is a great effort. And bingo. But I never one day expected that we actually gonna build this nice school by the water with a gym on it. And looking at the Congo as a big country, I'm very appreciative and thankful that this moment actually get to happen.
You have to spend countless hours with this ball in your hands if you want to be a good basketball player.
Everybody here has to be able to dribble, pass, and shoot.
It's not acceptable that at your age, you cannot dribble the ball.
Everybody here needs to be able to take a defensive rebound and push the ball before.
This is not a joke. This is serious. You have a chance to help your family, to represent your country. You can change lives with this. Do you understand? Yes, coach. It's all about rhythm. It's all about rhythm. Give it clap for him, man.
Everybody go like this. Girl, boy, black, white, gay, straight, short hair, long hair, skinny, tall, everybody. We all live together and we all live together well. So we'll dance together, we'll sing together, we'll play together, we'll learn together, and we'll cry together.
This ball right here can do wonders for your life. If basketball is important to you, take it very seriously, okay? And then life lessons as well, not just basketball, okay? You gotta stay in school. Education is very important. If you want to advance in life, you have to educate yourself, which is the most important thing in life.
I want you guys to be the next leaders, okay? Yes, because I have a little son right here. I have a little daughter. You guys have to be the example. We all have young kids. You guys have to be the example for them.
When I say work, you say hard work.
God has just put us here for a reason, and you grow and you become what you want to become. Asking you to speak about what is happening to the girls here and stand up for it, because I'm telling you that if you don't do it, the older men, the older people are not doing it. Yeah, they're not doing it. It's remarkable for me to be back in the north.
This is like homecoming for me. Basketball brought me to Maiduguri, and basketball got me out of Maiduguri, and basketball brought me back again.
There's so much talk about things that happen here, but people live normal lives. We want to bring a basketball camp here. We want to bring a basketball camp here.
Basketball can be a way of life. It's not just a game. It's a way of approaching work, a discipline, respect, development of your bodies, the development of your mind.
You've got to invest a lot of your time and energy, and those who work hard put a lot of hours into it and a lot of thinking into it. Passion, they are actually being giants. This development is not confined to just basketball.
So I encourage you to work hard and to get all you can out of this program.
This is my team back here, isn't it? I hope you know through sport that if you put in effort, you will be rewarded. I hope you learn through sport what it means to play as a team. And that even if you are the best player, your job is not just to show off, but your job is to make your teammates better. Thank you, Masai. Thank you, Giants of Africa.
Fantastic, inspiring stuff. But I just want to go along the line just to talk about our connections with sport. I've already told you mine. But one thing a lot of people don't know about you, Masai, is that you started life as a footballer in Nigeria.
I did. First of all, I think like everybody else, I really want to thank, I call him Presido. I want to thank him for making sports part of this, because I do feel that it's something that's not talked about in Africa as much as we should, especially the business side. That's all well and dandy, you know, that's, it's charity, it's foundations. I have Amadou Fall here who does such an unbelievable job in developing the game on the continent. But I think now it's time to talk the business of sports. I started playing soccer as a young kid growing up in Africa. And the interesting thing of showing this, I want to emphasize what we're missing. And it's very, very important. I do think that sports and the business of sports is the biggest opportunity for the next generation of Africa. And I'm including technology, real estate development, agriculture, everything. Sports is something that we're missing on this continent. And the reason why we're missing it is we don't recognize the talent because we walk around, the talent walks around like it's normal. Yeah, so you take Senegal, for instance. You go there and you see all these tall human beings in Sudan, in Mali. You go to Cameroon, Congo, and you see all these physical, Nigeria, physical. You see all the talent in football, all the runners in Kenya. All these things are overlooked in sport in Africa because we don't pay attention to it because we think it's normal. We absolutely think it's normal. It's not normal, okay? It's not normal that you have tribes of 7-footers. Yeah, it's not. And now I think business people here have to start paying attention to sports that way. We have a great mixture. To me, Africa's main talent, we can say we have all these resources. Africa's main resources is people. Yeah, it was smart. Yeah, it was one of the smartest people in the world. And we have to take advantage of this and bring it into sports. The time is now to do it.
Okay. Rejoice? Just a brief statement on the business of sport and also just a little bit about your passion for sport too.
Is this on?
Yeah.
Well, unlike Yuri and basketball, the passion of sport has been naturally there because of having spent most of my young years in the sports environment, especially in North America. But for football, where my current passion has to be, is because I am, I guess, blessed to be part of the executive committee of the South African National Soccer League, where almost on a monthly basis at our meetings, we are discussing the issue of converting the sport into successful businesses. My chairman, who is not here, always says, Dr. Koza, he always says, football is the happiness index of South Africans. And there are many other commentators on the sport who agree with that. But there are problems in the sense that the business of football is not a very successful business, and therefore this conversation will help us get to how to convert the love of this football into successful businesses.
Minister Asa, just briefly.
Thank you very much, and a very good morning to everyone. And the opportunity of being here, being a politician, you know, as politicians, at times we are not as good athletes. But there is the importance and the government will that then gets into it. South Africa is a very active sporting nation. So even if we are not full-time or participating, we participate by watching. So it has created that atmosphere, and football being one of the biggest in terms of the codes, it draws everybody closer and for government to come in to participate.
Okay. Go back to you, Masai, where we started. We talked before this. The NBA makes $7.2 billion a year. That's 3 times what the English Premier League makes. Your team, the Toronto Raptors, it's, well, we agreed, a money-making machine. In fact, it would put some businesses to shame, I'm sure, in the world. Just give us an idea of how your team, you tell us as president, makes its money.
It's a real, the ecosystem of sports and socioeconomic growth in in the US and places that have really developed in terms of sports is incredible. Yeah, through filling up stadiums, selling of jerseys, marketing, branding, television rights, you name it, it's so well thought out. And you wonder what it would be like if we had that on the continent here, because we are the ones supplying a lot of the talent. We have the talent here. I'm going to stress this even more, that we don't even know how many LeBron James or Serena Williams or Pelés, how many have passed through their lives in Africa and were not even discovered. They never even played a game because there are no courts, there are no fields, there are no leagues, there's no encouragement. We don't put the resources in it. That's what they do over there. That's why the business, that's why the Premiership makes 2.42 billion euros university sports. Everybody knows the NCAA in America. It makes incredible money from everything that they do. If you go to, she was talking about Connecticut, the money they make, University of Connecticut, all these universities. So when I look at this and I see that we have the talent, which is the base, and we have the businessmen, we have the acumen, we have the smarts. So the biggest issue, and pardon me, Minister, I'm going to say this, the biggest issue in Africa is why do we, I want to ask, what is cabinet reshuffles? Why do we have that? You take one minister, and I say, pardon me, ma'am, you take a minister of works and housing, and now you put them to become minister of sports. What the hell do they know about sports? It's really serious. There are some smart people like the minister here, I know Dr. Adeshino, there's a very little percentage of people that you can take to go from agriculture to finance or to very small, okay? But the issue in Africa is they have taken sports and put us 50 years behind because they keep reshuffling every time and putting minister of sports that doesn't know anything in every single country, almost every country. They don't know anything, there's no vision. They don't know anything about what is going to, it takes to grow the game on the continent. And it's unfortunate. I'm sorry that I have to say this. It's really unfortunate on the continent because it's put us back. Yeah, we need visionaries here. We need experts. And I appeal to people that we really need to, if it's not your expertise, hire the experts, you know, like to come and pay attention to it.
Okay, if you hold that thought there, I think, Minister, we have to go to you for a response to this.
Well, I agree because I think where he started is the fact that we are so endowed as Africa. What we fail to pick is to really get into the niches that can make us really grow and develop on that and change around the situation that we find ourselves in. And unfortunately, Africa is used to exporting whatever it has, and it is then manufactured and it is brought back. It's like it is not ours, and it has not developed from us. Maybe it's also high time that if we participate in this kind of a dialogue here today. It also challenges our governments because the will of government is very important when it comes to say, how do you assist in terms of what we have? Because usually we think that sport happens on its own. We are outside there as government dealing with issues of economy and people are playing out there. But leaving out the actual business that gets in about it. We are reviewing, even now here in South Africa, our case for sport, because the business side has not been there. We're talking social cohesion, we're talking nation building when we talk sport only. So now we're bringing in the element of business to say, you know, just like when you talk mining, you here are also talking where beneficiation comes in, where ownership comes in, where transformation is not only translated as part of looking in athletes on the field, but also the actual management of it and development of it and making sure it remains here in our space. So there is that direction which governments and our government is taking responsibility on.
So before we go back to you, I'd like to ask you, Rejoice, as somebody in the industry, as it were, with Mamelodi Sundowns, do you think that the leadership, particularly from government and the officials in Africa, is lacking? Do you think it's not taken seriously enough?
I wouldn't talk more about the leadership in government. I will talk more about leadership in the different clubs themselves, and then up to the level of the leagues that are governing football. I'm talking specifically about football. There have been observations made regarding governance. Observations made, and of course, he's talking to that also, Yuri. Observations regarding having in place, establishing first solid institutions so that the leagues are run professionally. I just want to make a comment before I forget it. When Sundowns hosted Barcelona the first time, the stadiums were full to the rafters, the stadium that was used, full to the rafters. 2010, I went to several matches, full to the brim. And recently, a few months ago, Sundowns hosted Barcelona again. People were standing outside to watch the game. But when it comes to our own domestic football matches, then things are different. That is where then the running of the sport as a business comes into play to say, gate takings, how much revenue do you get from that? How well is the club marketed? Statistics show that currently in South Africa specifically, over 70% of revenue comes from broadcasting rights. And therefore, there is a need to find ways to diversify sources of revenue, but you cannot do that unless your business model is solid.
I have to put the question back to you, Masai. Where you have your professional life, I ask you the question, what are the authorities and what's the ministry doing there to help develop business as a sport in your field?
You mean on the other side?
In your field there, what's the difference?
Well, it's why we're here. It's everything is, a lot of things are privatized, right? And that's why we appeal to the private sector here to get involved. If I come to this conference and they tell me, people that come up here and they say they're making 100 billion deals, $2 billion deals, $200 million deals, I'm telling you, every company, every single company has to pay attention to sports, okay? And take all the billions that's been mentioned here, just take $50,000 and hire an expert in that organization or whatever your company is. Only $50,000, because we're here talking about billions and millions. $50,000, go find the smartest mind, okay? A sports expert, okay, that can come and tell you some of the things that your company can do, okay, to invest in sports on the continent. And that's what has been done over there.
So if I go back to Rejoice here, Mamelodi Sundowns, sounds simple. Just hire the experts, pay a bit of money, and they could turn Sundowns into a profitable company as opposed to a loss-making football team.
Well, I haven't said it's a loss-making football team to start with, but without really looking at individual clubs, I think we want to focus more on how clubs across, especially the Premier Division clubs, the 16 clubs, how do we assist each club to be run as a business? Remember, a vast majority of those clubs were started out of the love of the game, not as businesses. Now the challenge is to say we now have to convert this love into a money-making business instead of the losses. That is why I like some of the suggestions that Yuri is making.
Well, Minister Haas, I have to ask you as well, on the theme of what we're talking about, why not do something radical in the sports ministry, get a business development manager from the private sector to come in and see how he can nurture sport and make it into a business here?
Maybe South Africans would remember that we instituted an inquiry into our confederation. And the suggestions there that are coming in, they are also bringing in that very element to say you cannot just be talking athletes only, but bring in the business side and business experts into it. So that already is flowing in, is part of the program that we are handling. But critical to it is to what extent private sector also comes in. I think the suggestion here to say, you know, the contribution and the direction private sector can bring in, it contributes a great deal to the human capital that we need to develop, but also the success of the very businesses, because the jobs that they create, they also want people who are going to be productive there, and sport can do that. But on the other side, the diversification of businesses themselves, because if you look into sport, you're looking into hospitality issues, you're looking into merchandising. It's a broad spectrum where business can also further invest. But we're looking into infrastructure partnership in infrastructure, because if you look into that picture, it's not a very good picture, but the talent is there. We are looking into developing that talent, but it gets snatched and taken out, away, and therefore leaves the shores, and therefore cannot further develop. We're looking into those aspects.
Okay, Ms. I'll come back to you. Aside from the government aspect, in the leadership in sport in this continent in particular, I remember many years ago I was doing a story about the recovery of Rwandan football after the genocide. And I asked an official there, what's the biggest problem with the game here? And he told me quite simply, he said, listen, Chris, if you go into a pub now or a bar and tell people you can run a football club, you'll end up doing it within 3 weeks, because, you know, there's that kind of attitude of, oh, well, of almost amateurism in the game here. How, from your experience in a more sophisticated market, can we ever change that?
I think there are a number of ways. When I heard the stats that there's more, I think it's Manchester United and Arsenal and all these teams have more supporters in Africa than they have like anywhere else. Yeah, it's incredible. How does Arsenal have more fans in Africa than they have in Africa? That means there are all these people following, and I can honestly say that sports on the continent might have been better 30 years ago than it is now. It's unfortunate to say that, but when you think about all these football clubs that have history, Ashanti Kotoko and all these teams, how can we have not formed a league? Before, it was only 2 countries in Africa that represented Africa in the World Cup, and now it's 5. It's going to grow more just because we have more talent. It's going to be more countries eventually, so it is growing. I've had this job for 6 years. Amadou has had his job as the president of my team. And I've been a GM for 9 years. Amadou has been one of the leaders in sports for years and years. He heads NBA Africa on the continent here. I have never gotten one call from an official in Africa to say, how do you guys do this? Or how does this work? I even call people to find out how things work here, so I can take that knowledge a little bit and see how it transfers even in Toronto. Yeah, it's learning. Yeah, but we have so many ego-driven people that don't know about the sport, and I keep specifying it because that's the issue in Africa. Yeah, we don't have experts. When I see technology, there's no way that you're bringing somebody that doesn't know about technology, that's in technology. There's no way you're bringing somebody that doesn't know something about banking, that's in banking. So why do we, in sports, why do we have to put up with people that don't know anything about the sports? It really bothers me. And why don't we learn? Even if you don't, come and learn what the Premiership is doing, what the NBA is doing, what Amadou is doing with NBA Africa, what these experts are doing. And how can we bring it? How can we have the game? We've had the game here, the NBA game. And I know Amadou is trying to take it to the rest of the continent, and that's why we've gotten President Kagame, Kenyatta, all these guys involved. But everybody is crying in Africa that why can't the NBA game come to my country? Why is it always in South Africa? Well, guess what? Tell us the stadium, and we will bring Toronto Raptors to that stadium now. Yeah. If you have the arena, we will bring it to you. Yeah, but we don't have the arenas, and that's those are the challenges that we have. So I'm appealing to these companies. I'm appealing to people. Even if one of these companies builds an arena, do you know what my arena does? You asked me that question. Well, today we play an NBA game, then they strip it, and they play a hockey game the next day, a professional hockey game. Revenue comes in. Then the next day, Drake plays there, or Beyonce, or somebody, or Two-Face, or whoever, the Davido, comes and plays there. And it's revenue coming in. We haven't thought about that. I go to the national stadium in Nigeria, or every country has a national stadium like that. Unkept, unorganized, it's dirty, there's nobody, it's unkept, okay? And there's no vision. There's no vision. If somebody that really came with a focus came and put money into this, do we know how much you can make out of a stadium that's run well, that's organized well, and has a business direction? Yeah, you want to make money. There's so much that can be done. You can put restaurants around it. Yeah, you can put sports shops around it. Yeah, there's so many activities. I go to do my basketball camp in Nigeria, and in some places, they use the place for a wedding because somebody has given somebody some money, and they just come and close it, and they use it for a wedding, or they use it for another event. I'm not saying they should not even do that. Do it in a way that the government makes money. Yeah, do it in a way that it's organized, not doing it for your friend, and that's how we work. Yeah, and we shouldn't work like that.
Okay. But you're touching on a subject as well about the business of sport. Before this debate, we're talking about how Africa won the World Cup for France.
Yes.
You could argue that, certainly. But my theory is, and I want to ask you about this, Rejoice, I mean, I think a lot of the talent is being sucked out of this continent like marrow from a bone, and it's not coming back half the time. A lot of the people now who play for France, who were born and bred here, they've gone, their children will play for European clubs, and that's it, they've gone. And also you've got to appreciate as well, Rejoice, I mean, every Saturday, and I know I've been there in Accra, in Lagos, there are scores of people with Arsenal shirts on watching football on TV, and Sundowns and Pirates and Chiefs are struggling to keep up, I think. Doesn't that worry you when we're talking about making a business and making more money out of the sport?
My response to that is that it is very good for players to be incentivized to work hard so that they can get opportunities to, if you like, go and play overseas to make more money for themselves, to get more exposure. Our challenge, I agree with a student who just graduated from Turkey. In his doctoral thesis, he's discussing this at length. And his view is we have to grow more timber so that even if we lose some players, we still retain. The challenge is growing the timber, the infrastructure that is needed. How do we professionalize these academies that are required by FIFA, that every club must have an academy? The question is, how well run are these academies? Are they producing to the degree that they must? How then do we assist them to develop the young players en masse so that those that get to go anywhere in the world, like he did, that should be good for everybody. So I don't see it as a problem. I see it as a challenge for us to grow more.
So, Minister, I have to ask you from a government point of view, what can you do for the grassroots to try and foster this business relation? I'll just give you an example. I did a story once on Hearts of Oak in Ghana, one of the legends of African football. I'd heard about them long before I ever went there. And I went to see them train, and they were training on like rough ground full of stones and bottles. And I remember thinking at the time, this is one of the names of African football, and this is what they have to train on. And they said, well, we don't have any money, we don't have any support, hard luck. What can government do about this?
We've started, although still on a very small scale, because earlier we had a case for sport that we presented. Now in our review, we really are putting in the business aspect of it, this latest review that we're doing. But it helped us to move a ground where our treasury, our department that deals with local government, which is cooperative government and traditional affairs, and sport, looking into, in terms of government funding, what can we pull together? So we're tapping on what is called municipal infrastructure grant. And out of it, we are identifying nodes, and we're partnering with private sector. We're getting into those in order to develop sports field, multi-purpose ones, in terms of what codes are being played, so that you can afford opportunity. And we're pulling up to make sure that they are of standard, such that those young people in the communities, in the rural areas, in the schools, surrounding schools, are able to use such facilities. We're rolling out that, but the funding is still on a very small scale. We do have minimal partnership with private sector. We want to grow that. We want that to grow from the private sector, because at the moment, private sector would only come in as far as they would be safe in terms of tax and rebates there. But should that grow, it is going to help even more. And in terms of the review that we are doing, it also gets into say, when private sector come in and sponsor these young people, who also looking at furthering our interactions with the revenue services to give them rebates around those.
Well-intentioned and industrious plans here by the government. Is that enough for you, Masai?
Yes, I feel it's such a challenge with, I think it's such a challenge with government, and that's why I think what Dr. Adesina has done here, it's given me so many ideas, you know, like, because I was thinking I didn't even come equipped here, you know, we should be making, I should have come to make deals, you know, like, but I did not know that it would be like this. But next year, I'm telling you, like, a lot of sports deals will be made here. I guarantee that. People will come, and we will really come prepared now, you know, like that. I know that this is going to happen here, because I'm telling you guys, Africa is no more afraid. We're not afraid of anybody anymore. Yes, the continent is bold now. The people are bold. You see what entertainment is doing. You see what rappers, Davido, and all these people in singing and movies, and it's shaking. Yeah, people are paying attention. If Drake is asking me about who Wizkid is and what is happening in Africa, and people are really paying attention to it. And then you can see in every other thing how much China is here, how much technology is growing. I was so curious to listen to the panels on energy, yeah, in agriculture, and how do we bring all of this into sports? Yeah, and there's something unique about sports. It brings people together. Yeah, it's that one thing that makes people happy. It gives people hope. You show your pride and your culture. And what is it more that we have on our continent than that? That's why I was proud to show that video, because you can see that court that we built, the colors. Yeah, it shows who we are. Why can't we have creative minds? Why can't we have that vision? Why can't we bring music into this? Why can't we bring, yeah, and that's why I keep emphasizing on these arenas and facilities and infrastructure, that we can bring so many things together just come and study it a little bit how it's done over there, and we can transfer, because the basic thing is the talent. Yeah, that's what you need to start off. And we have abundance. It's scary when they say that 1 out of every 4 people in the world, by 2050, 1 out of every 4 people in the world will be African. Can you imagine that? And then they say 60%, everybody always says 60% of the population of Africa, I don't know, 70% is 25 years old and younger. What better off than sports? Yeah, because when we look at our games and we look at the speed of these athletes or the length of their hands, and we're looking for length. We say we're looking for long arms. And then I'm walking in Senegal and you're seeing kids with their arms up to here. Or you're going to Sudan and you're seeing their kids up to here. Or their legs are like this long. And we're not paying attention to it. Yeah, we should be paying attention to it, because selfishly, that's money walking. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And I'm being selfish here and talking about basketball because that's my domain. How about soccer? Yeah, how about football? How about boxing? How about track and field? Yeah, how about all of this? Yeah, I'm telling you, we're not paying attention. Women, I'm so proud I'm on the panel here with 2 women. We're not paying attention to women on the continent. Yeah, women in sports. How athletic. Go anywhere. There's some Instagram or social media craze. I'm not on social media, but somebody told me about it, about the bodies of Ghanaians. They take off their shirts and you see how ripped they are. Why can't we turn that into something? Have you guys watched American football? Yeah. American football, have you watched it? Pay attention. Every team you go to now, the jersey is there's more than 10 African players on every team in American football. That was not seen before. What are they seeing? They are seeing the physical abilities of these guys on the continent, okay? And soon, that's going to become a business. They haven't figured that out yet. Somebody is going to figure out that you can come and have American football camps here and get all that talent here. Why can't one of these business sectors do it? Why do we have to wait for people to come and do it for us?
Okay, so we'll keep on the talent issue here now. As you yourself rejoice, somebody who's in the industry here. All right, we've talked here about talent. We've got money underneath our noses, people here who can do this. What are the chances with the current setup here of the next Lionel Messi kicking a ball round in Germiston, age 12, on this day, making it to the big time and making it to the riches of the sport? How fit is the system to push them through?
Well, if I may again, must I be selfish? We just exported one to Brighton from our own academy, which is why I'm saying we need to do more. By the way, the point I should have also made earlier is the forces of demand and supply in this space that we're talking about need not be regulated. Because the issue is, if we successfully do what Masai is talking about, what the minister is talking about, to make our players want to stay, there will be no complaint about an exodus of the best talent. What are we doing to retain the talent? And one of the things is to grow enough, and only a few of those will see greener pastures, which is natural, but we have not done enough to make sure that the talent that we are generating sees this as the green pasture instead of outside. That, for me, is the challenge. But I think with interactions such as these, the necessary infrastructure will eventually be, it's already there, but it will be promoted. And increased and expanded so that the quality of the training, which is what again Masa is talking to, is realized.
Chris, can I say just something? I think she's absolutely right, and communities, I think, they are attracted to homegrown. There's something about a homegrown talent that if Kaiser Chiefs or Orlando Pirates, they have, like that 17, 16-year-old kid playing for them, and they are paid well. We control all these things, like the way it should be, not people just wanting to export them. The stadiums will fill up. Yeah, the stadiums will fill up. I know when I was growing up, my dad would take me to go watch football, and there was one time he was actually really sad because we couldn't get into the stadium. It was so packed, and this is in northern Nigeria. Yeah, so it was big time. So it's because there was homegrown talent. At that time, there were not very many players playing overseas. When the Nigerian professional team, we had the African Cup of Nations, we would invite one professional back, and it's only one player that's playing overseas. Now, in Nigeria, you can have 10 Nigerian national teams with professionals playing in Europe.
Well, even there's a requirement, isn't there, that if you play for Nigeria, you have to be in the top flight of whatever league you're in. It was a story we covered recently, yeah.
Yes, and in many countries, whether it's Ivory Coast, Senegal, now even small countries can win the African Cup of Nations. Before, it was Nigeria, Ghana, as we said. Yeah, but for me, it's very important. I'm going to keep stressing it that this sector, the private sector, get involved. And people like the minister now, she knows. Yeah, she's been exposed. We were with her when Amadou hosted the Africa game here. We brought the MBA here, and you see like the dynamics. I sat by her and she said, wow, look at all these athletes. Look at how tall they are. Look at how big they are. Like we really have to pay attention to that here. And if we keep that talent here, and by the way, outside of sports, there are people like us. I'll say Amadou, there are so many people here, Will, Vivian. I see so many people that even work in the game that we never played in the NBA. Yeah, we never. That's the unique thing about Africa is we have smart people and STEM, visionaries, creatives everywhere. And the business of sports is another part that we're not exposed to. Yeah, and we need to expose ourselves to. How am I the president of the Toronto Raptors, and I might be the dumbest guy in this room with all the young kids, all the smart kids, all the people that have all kinds of education, with Generation Z, who are exposed now to technology and social media and information, mass information. How is it that we don't get more people to know about being a sports lawyer or a sports doctor or a sports engineer, whatever it is? As a kid in Nigeria, I used to battle in my head on how I'm going to buy a $15,000 upright rim to ship to Nigeria. By the time you ship it, and then it stays in customs in Nigeria because you have to go and bribe to get it out. And then there was a kid who played basketball, and he wasn't good enough to go far, and he started thinking, he studied engineering, I should start making those rims. And he started making them. And a lot of the rims you see in that video are made by him, okay? Yeah. And that's his business now, making tons of money. So that mentality of we had to ship it here and ship it here and ship it here, somebody is making it on the continent.
Well, that's what this whole conference is about, is it not? Entrepreneurs taking advantage, taking a risk, and getting somewhere. But, Minister, you can hear the ambition and the unabashed confidence from the young man at the end of the line here. What do you think yourself, as politicians, as administrators, people who run the sport here, can you do to help match up with this passion we're feeling here?
You know, currently what we are doing, we are building one national training center. All provinces in the country have agreed that we harvest money. I think private sector, we are inviting you to partner with us. And the nature of that center is such that it opens opportunities because it is going to be a world-class center with hotels, with accommodation, and those aspects are those things that would not have been thought to be part of sport ordinarily in how we are dealing with it. So we're crowding in all of that into one space, and I want to afford our young people and therefore develop the talent. So it's aspects where we want to pull in even experts who are going to be part of, nurturing that talent that we're going to scout from elsewhere. So we gradually are moving towards that, and we're calling upon private sector to really work with us. Because yes, Dr. Smelan, as we are saying, if we have more, we won't then be scared to have them also, getting to be scouted to go out of the country. You know, in the last few days, while the negative element around us developing this talent and it lives, Athletics South Africa was saying, some of our athletes, get to be scouted and they go outside of the country. And reality on what has been happening is that they just die down when they are out of the country. They are not assisted to develop further. They are picked as top athletes out of South Africa, but when they then are exposed out there, they are not developed. Instead, they come having lost their skills. So it means Africa needs to rise to also look into how we can grow them further to participate in the outside space, not only to go there as just because there is no opportunity back in Africa, whilst we have such great opportunity to develop that talent, to compete out there in the world and bring back those medals, bring back that money that can change their lives because they can live out of sport.
Masai, what's your reaction to that?
I'll go away just 1 second, and I think this, I don't know how this is going to be done, but I think one of the things we have to really emphasize on, and do we have mics? Do we have mics here?
I've just checked with the organizers. We do. So we can...
yeah, because I want Amadou to say...
There's some questions coming.
To come and back me up a little bit. But I do agree with the minister. You know, again, it comes back to the business of sports. One of the things, I know it's being discussed on a high level in Africa that we really need to emphasize on is how do we open the borders of the continent? That is going to be a huge key to everything that we're doing, whether it's everything that's being discussed here, I know on a higher level, but how much would that help in sports? And I think it's actually really overrated, where we really overrate what the borders are. At one point I was having issues in Nigeria doing the basketball camp, and I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to try and go to my mother's country, Kenya, to do my camps. And you go and you build a network. You look for people that you can help. And it's not that hard, you know, like to go to other countries. We can all work together. We make it sound like this border thing is like bigger than it is. Yeah, and the simple thing is, I know all these leaders. I know President Kagame is working really hard on it, but how do we open our borders? You know, it's going to open up so much, you know, for the continent. And presidents and government can still be government, you know, when we do this. But is there a mic? Do we have
Yeah,
a
we have
mic?
a mic here. We've got about 20 minutes left. You've had a very passionate and heartfelt debate here. Do we have some questions?
I'd like to point out Amadou here to say a few, at least. He's right here in front.
All right.
Well, thanks for putting me on the spot, man.
Yeah.
Again, we can't thank enough the AFDB and President Adesina for bringing this conversation in the mainstream. Very quickly, as I saw that video in the opening, what really caught my attention is some of the folks that you see there, some of those young players that are from across Africa. Bismarck Biombo, he's from Lumumbashi. And the reason why I'm just emphasizing this, to show that the journey they took kind of really tick all the boxes in terms of why sport as a key driver for economic growth on the continent. We talk about the issues, you know, from a leadership to a lack of infrastructure, but we've seen through our own lives what this thing can do for self-realization. Whether it's Masai, Dikembe, Hakim, all these great players in the history of our game in the NBA, the money they make, but the passion they have to coming back in the continent and build. Bismarck is investing in education. Because of his story, when he grew up, he was saying he used to walk like some ridiculous number of kilometers because there was no school close to him. He signs a $72 million contract. He's investing in building schools so that kids in his areas don't have to do that. Dikembe Mutombo built a $30 million hospital in DRC. Gorgui Dieng from Senegal investing in agriculture. So just to talk about how sports can be a real economic engine. So now I'm excited about the future because when we first came here in 2010 to open the office, our focus was just to make sure we make the game accessible. The vast talent that Masai is talking about from Sudan or Cameroon, Senegal, Mali, wherever, that goes unnoticed. We felt that if we just build courts and train coaches, that talent is going to emerge. And that's what's happening. We have an increasing number of talented players playing in our game. I don't think people realize what Masai is doing and what he represents. He is the first general manager of a professional sports team. I would think anywhere in the world, really, you know, in North America. He is leading the business of the Toronto Raptors, right now the #1 team in the NBA. I don't think, you know, that's enough credit. So where I'm going with this is that we focus at grassroots level just to make the game accessible. Kids are playing, players are coming. Now we have to build the entire ecosystem in the continent. What he talked about, I know the young man he's talking about who's building these uprights, these baskets that you would normally import from Spalding. This guy is building it in Nigeria. We have other young people who are entrepreneurs in building courts right here in South Africa. You know, a young man, all these sports courts you see that was usually imported from China, they're being manufactured here. And in our grassroots efforts, those are the guys that we use. The amount of jobs that could be created through sports. We have, at the NBA, we hire the best in class in everything. We have the best marketeers, the best broadcasters, the best social media people. All these are jobs that kids who are regular students can aspire to get involved in. Our goal is, in the next 3 years, our commissioner announced this, and you're going to back me up. In the next 3 years, we are going to have a Pan-African professional basketball league where kids are going to have jobs, not just the players playing on the court, but all kinds of jobs around it. Infrastructure is being built today. We hosted our 3rd NBA Africa game in Pretoria at the Sun Arena. That facility has everything the minister talked about, restaurants, casino. People came there from all over the continent. They had a great time. The new arena is built in Dakar. In Dakar Arena, President Kagame, as Masai talked about, they are building a brand new arena also in Kigali that is going to afford us to really bring more events on the continent. And the vast amount of talent that we produce is going to find a home to play right here because we're going to have the professional league that is going to serve that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just before the next question, just one quick question I have to put back to you. In some ways, though, we've talked about business and sport here. Aren't we comparing apples to pears in the fact that the environment you come from has been decades of investment in infrastructure, skills, all the things that give capacity for the business that you enjoy? It's not quite been the same on this continent, especially when it comes to mass sports like football. So aren't we comparing apples to pears a bit?
I 100% agree with you, but when I look at the Premiership, I remember watching the Premiership and I didn't see it to be a very attractive league. There was a time the NBA was not a very attractive league. Yeah, we remember I remember the Premiership very, very well, and we remember the Spanish league and the Italian league were much better. Yeah, now the Premiership, because they had so much vision on how they want to do it, it's the biggest thing. The NBA is the biggest thing now. It's the vision of the commissioner. It's the vision of what Amadou's talked about, is all these people, these experts that they hire. We have to start somewhere. Yeah, we have to start somewhere.
And the lady in the fourth row there, you had your hand up first. Who's the question for? And please keep it brief so everyone can have a chance.
Good morning. My name is Marsha. I just want to say thank you to the organizers also for conducting this conference. I think it's very, very important that we have this conversation about sport, and we'll have more conversation about sport. I want to, I suppose the conversation right now is happening, I suppose it's around talent and I suppose what governments are doing, but I think the one thing that's missing here is media. I think media has a critical role to play in making sure that actually sport becomes boundaryless. Because when we see, I suppose the Premiership becomes important. I watch the Premiership because I see my own, and because media enables me to do that. So the question I'm asking is, also the investment that needs to happen, it needs to also to happen in media, but in media that actually is geared towards African effort. We don't see much of, I suppose, African media that actually broadcasts African sport. So what I would like to ask, I suppose, from Ujiri is, what more effort, what from his learnings, I suppose, in his market, what can you bring to Africa in terms of advancing and creating an opportunity for shared knowledge so that everybody can benefit?
Okay.
Well, when you talk about media, I think one of the great things that I know the NBA does is they tell a story. Yeah, we have to tell, there are so many stories, and with this platform that we have, this day and age with technology and social media, we Africans have to tell the story of Africans. Yeah, we have to. We have to do, we really, really have to, in a selfish way, it's almost promote. I love to talk about Africans. I love to talk about what Africans have done. How can the media really put this on a platform for us and really promote on my team, I love to say that I have 3 Africans that are playing. How many people here know that 3 Africans play for the Toronto Raptors? Serge Ibaka, Oji Anunoby, Pascal Siakam. And they're playing high-level basketball. Not many people know about it, and we need to tell these stories. How many people know Amadou's story? How many people know? There's so many of them, that we can actually tell. Bismarck Biombo, he mentioned, from Congo. And I wonder how many stories there are in soccer, in running and Kenyans and all of that. We need to tell those stories more.
The other gentleman in the red tie.
Good morning.
Who's it for?
My name is Linus Okore, it's for Ujiri. I am currently the governorship candidate for a political party in Nigeria, Imo State of Nigeria. And as you were talking, my mind has been racing. I want to be the first, when I win, by the grace of God, I'd like to be the first state that you model this kind of discussion you're talking about. I would like to commit to that, basically. And so you were talking about closing the deal next year. I want to close the deal right now.
Wow.
Because
So,
I think the future, that I've been dealing with this thing in my mind, the future of Africa, basically, will be investment in young people, in sports, and in leadership. If we combine two of them together, whoa, my state is going to be the best. I want to talk about my state.
can I tell you something?
Thank you very much. Gentleman in the front, sorry, you want to come back?
Can I tell you something? I was just talking about it, an ex-NBA player who now runs wakanow.com, Obina Ekezie. We had dinner with him yesterday. He went to speak in a conference. You can Google him, Obina Ekezie, played in the NBA for many years. He's from that part of Nigeria, okay? So I'm telling you that that part of Nigeria, the eastern part of Nigeria, the athletes that are there is a gold mine that people don't even know about. If somebody went, okay, and built 5 outdoor basketball courts today in that part of Nigeria, 3 years from now, I can guarantee you, I'll guarantee it right here, if you go and do it, 3 years from now, you have 3 NBA players from there every year. Okay? That's how much talent there is in eastern Nigeria. Okay? And how many places are there like that in Africa? Think about Sudan. Think about Senegal. Think about Congo. Think about Mali. Think about tribes in Africa where they're only like, the average height is 6'8". There are tribes like that. If you went and built basketball courts there and just threw 100 basketballs and say, or 10 basketballs and say, play with these basketballs, nobody is even going to teach you. Figure it out. Something is going to come out of that.
Good. We've got time for 2 more questions. The lady in the glasses there, please. And who's your question for? Please keep it brief. We're running out of time. 8 minutes. And hang on. Have you got a microphone yet? Well, hang on. You first, you second. But please be brief.
Working this one. Yeah. I really take on board most of the issues you covered. I'm Mohamed Nyauga, chairman of the Central Bank of Kenya, a former Football Premier League player. Now, there are a number of fundamentals that we need to deal with. First one, change of mindset, where we stop seeing sports as a pastime thing. Number 2, we must, as political leaders, stop seeing sports associations as a political constituency, so that we don't apply sanctions when we need to. The third point, leadership. Now, how do we get these sports leaders? By accident. And therefore, we end up in having management accidents in sports. They are not leaders that inspire, impact, influence, and they have no integrity, most of them. So we must have to deal with that issue. Fourthly, and finally, governance in sports. Sports associations or sports in most of our countries are not bankable, in the sense that most sponsors shy away from them because these associations don't have systems, processes, and procedures. Anything goes. We must address these fundamentals before we talk about having sports business development officers, before we talk about experts, because experts will prepare reports, but they are going to drop on hard stone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the lady over here.
Hi, my name is Danisa Beloy, a businesswoman here in South Africa. Anybody can take it, but the reality is that we need to change the narrative that sports is just for pleasure. It's not a business. We have to, and I'm glad that the AIF Debate put it as part of the discussion. But I wish it should have been part of the central discussion, not at the end of the conference when the hall is empty. I think it should be central because it can really play a huge role, like Ujiri has just mentioned, in ensuring that young people in an Africa that is so youthful take advantage of the opportunity, but recognize that anybody who can build a business, your Dangotes, your Mutsipes, they can build a huge business in sports. Sports as a business, and let our children understand that if they are disciplined, there's life beyond sports, and we've seen examples that you've mentioned, and we should be proud of them. But the narrative should permeate across the continent of Africa, that it's not something peripheral, it's something that is fundamental in our existence, and we need to promote it. Thank you.
A lot of passion there. Any response to that? Mamelodi Sundowns?
Yes, I agree with Dr. Danisa Baloyi. This is how I started in the discussion to say a majority of the clubs were created under that narrative of bringing the happiness index temporarily, eliminating crime for several hours while the matches are going. But I agree also with her, but it's a start, Dr. Danisa. It's an excellent start. As he says, next year, this will be the first conversation, and the others can follow.
Time for one or two more. The young man from Zimbabwe, Mr. Marere.
Thank you.
Who's your question for?
I'm addressing three. The Honorable Minister, Mr. Simani, and Masai. Masai, you today have spoken to the embodiment of myself. I am the first Zimbabwean in history to play in the NFL. I played with the Dallas Cowboys, and I was at Penn State University as an American football player. Following that career, I started now one of Africa's top sports companies, which is called WWS Africa, and we're involved in sports travel, sports scholarships to the US, sports development, management. We're doing everything because nobody's doing anything. And we must do business, and we must do deals at this conference. You speak right into me. We are ready to go into Nigeria. We're ready to do talent identification. The people we've talent identified already, some of them have been the best in the world out of some of the most remote areas in the sport of athletics, some even in football through our organization. Ms. Simelane, you speak of some of the soccer clubs that you've been in contact with. We have a collaboration agreement with AC Milan and a few other Italian clubs there that are looking for top talented players. Honorable Minister, I am the person you need to speak to in terms of the policies and I'm the professional Masai was talking to you about, that we need to sit down and we need to talk, and I'm willing to really give some policies and some angles in terms of where we can go. Sports is the biggest business. I made most of my money in life from sport. 1 year, and I was able to set up an industry now, and I've been in business 16 years, and that was just 1 year. And I'm not as talented as some of the people that are on the continent. On television once I said that you can throw a stone in any direction on the African continent and hit somebody with talent. So we need to do something about that, and I'm ready to get involved. Please, if you would avail yourselves, I would be very willing to have a meeting and to discuss what we can do.
Thank you very much. Last question from the lady here. Who's it for, and what do you want to know?
Hi, my name is Tebogo Tshwane. I'm a journalist at the Mail and Guardian. It's for Minister Xasa. It's on the National Training Center that you say you're building, and that all the provinces have agreed to garner funds for that in order for it to become a reality. You've invited the private sector to invest in it as well. I just wanted to know, did you use this platform as an opportunity to garner that money and to draw in that investment? Because I think that this was the perfect opportunity for the department to do so. And if so, how much has been committed, or if anything at all, has the department actually used this platform to garner support for sport in the country? Thank you.
Not as yet. We haven't put it concretely because it is still in its initial phases. We're still dealing with land issues around it and making sure then we put together a proposal. Because government in South Africa has got what is called Invest SA, which is that portal wherein all of us put in bankable projects when we're finalized. But critical to participation of the private sector. We're looking into various angles of development as we move, nurturing the talent moving forward. So that's the space that is currently there. We've signed with basic education to ensure that we get into schools. We're looking into issues of infrastructure, but also scouting the talent and opening opportunities for young people to actually play. We're bringing back physical education in class. Which has not been there or enforced. So we already are having that. But critical to it, for instance, as part of our mass participation and encouraging sport, we produce and buy a lot of soccer merchandising. And a lot of it comes out of the country. And we've not really picked that there is business that we can create, small business that we can create out of that. So this narrative that we need to bring back and ensure that we are able to put, concretely to the private sector, what is it that we're saying? This kind of dialogue is opening that, and it is what we're going to pursue.
I'm afraid time's up on this. I know we're a small group on the last day, but a passionate group at that. Thank you very much for your time, your passion, your indulgence, and I can't thank my panel enough for the input for this thing. It's been absolutely inspiring. Mazai Ujiri, the president of the Toronto Raptors, Rejoice Similani of Mamelodi Sundowns and the PSL, and the Minister Thokozile Xaza. Thank you very much indeed for your time, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.